Stop. If you already packed away your seed packets for the year, you are about to lose the best harvest of your entire garden, and you don't even know it yet. Right now, while most people are mowing their lawns for the last time and telling themselves the season is basically over, there is a completely different garden happening in secret. It doesn't look like much yet, just warm soil, a few empty rows, and a short window that is already closing. But in 6 weeks, while everyone else is staring at dead tomato vines, this hidden garden will be producing the sweetest, crispest, most flavorful vegetables of the entire year. Vegetables that taste nothing like the ones you grew in June. Some of them are ready in as little as 3 weeks. One of them, if you plant it even a few days too late, will not survive to give you a single pod. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which 15 vegetables to get into the ground right now, in what order, and the one mistake that quietly ruins this harvest for almost everyone who tries it. Number 15 is the plant most people walk past in the garden center without a second glance, and it might end up being the one you use every single day until frost. Let's get into it. Number 15. Scallions. Nobody brags about scallions. Nobody photographs them for the garden group on Facebook, but ask any experienced grower what they'd replant first if they could only choose one thing, and scallions come up more often than almost anything else on this entire list. They don't need a trellis. They don't need a big bed. They need a narrow strip of soil by the kitchen door, and in exchange they give you fresh green flavor on command. Eggs, noodles, soup, rice, whatever you're making tonight. Sow the seeds directly into the soil now. You'll see sprouts in 7 to 14 days, depending on how warm it still is. The trick almost nobody uses. Don't pull the whole plant when you harvest. Take scissors, cut the green leaves down to about an inch above the soil, and leave the base alone. It will often push out a fresh round of growth. Sow a second batch about 10 days after the first, and a third batch 10 days after that, and you've built yourself a rolling harvest that can run from late September well into October, sometimes longer if your fall stays mild. Good varieties to look for. Evergreen Hardy White, which tolerates cold better than almost any other scallion. Deep Purple, if you want color as well as flavor. And White Lisbon, a fast, reliable standard. As for pests, the main thing to watch is onion thrips, tiny slivers of insect that leave silvery streaks on the leaves. A hard spray of water knocks most infestations back, and a floating row cover early on keeps them from finding the row in the first place. Scallions are proof that the most useful plant in the garden is rarely the flashiest one. Number 14. Arugula. If patience isn't your strong suit, arugula was built for you. While carrots are still thinking about germinating, arugula can already be on your plate, 21 to 30 days from seed to baby leaf, which makes it one of the fastest wins in the entire fall garden. Here's the part almost nobody explains correctly. Arugula grown in heat turns aggressively peppery, sometimes unpleasantly sharp. Arugula grown as the weather cools becomes something else entirely. Nutty, balanced, and genuinely craveable. The leaves keep their personality, but the harshness fades. The mistake that ruins arugula for most beginners is letting the leaves get too big. Once they pass 3 inches, especially in warm soil, the flavor turns aggressive fast. Harvest young, cut about an inch above the soil with scissors, leave the base alone, and you'll often get a second flush within 2 weeks. Don't sow the whole packet today. Sow a small patch now and another in 2 weeks. Staggered plantings beat one big planting every time. For varieties, standard rocket arugula is the fastest and most reliable. Astro is a slower bolting option if your falls run warm, and wasabi arugula brings a sharper, almost horseradish-like kick if you want something bolder. The pest to watch for here is flea beetles, small black insects that riddle the leaves with tiny shot holes. They love arugula from the moment it sprouts, so cover the row with a lightweight floating row cover right after sowing rather than waiting until you see damage. Quick pause. If you're the kind of person who wants to actually eat well out of your backyard instead of just looking at it, hit subscribe now, because this channel is about to walk through 14 more of these, and I promise the next one changes how you think about a vegetable you've probably already given up on. Number 13. Kohlrabi. If you saw this thing without a label, you might genuinely not know what you were looking at. A pale green globe swelling right above the soil line, leaves shooting out of it in every direction, like something from a different kind of garden entirely. It looks complicated. It is not. Peel it, slice it thin, eat it raw. What you get is somewhere between a broccoli stem and a crisp, barely sweet apple. Kohlrabi wants to build that swollen stem in cool weather, which is exactly what an August planting sets up. Most varieties need 45 to 60 days. The one rule that actually matters: do not let it get big. The bigger the bulb, the more fibrous and woody the inside becomes. Once it hits 2 to 3 inches across, start checking it and pull it while it's still tender. Thin your seedlings early too. Crowd them, and you'll get plenty of leaves but disappointing little stems. Good varieties include white Vienna and purple Vienna, which taste nearly identical but differ in color, and Colibri, a compact purple type bred for smaller gardens. Since kohlrabi is part of the cabbage family, it draws the same pests as broccoli and cabbage, mainly cabbage worms and flea beetles. A row cover, kept on from planting until the bulb starts forming, handles most of the problem, and if you spot green worms chewing holes in the leaves, BT spray is an organic option that targets caterpillars without harming beneficial insects. This is the vegetable that quietly makes people say, "Wait, I've never had this before," and that reaction alone is worth the bed space. Number 12. Lettuce. Every gardener who watched their June lettuce turn bitter and bolt within days deserves to know this: that failure was never your fault. Lettuce grown in long, hot days is basically designed to rush toward flowering, and bitterness is the price of that rush. Lettuce planted now isn't racing toward summer, it's growing straight into fall, and that changes everything about how it tastes. The catch is germination. Lettuce seed can go dormant if the soil is too warm, which is why some people sow, water faithfully, and see nothing for 2 weeks. The fix: plant in a spot with afternoon shade, keep the soil surface moist, sow shallow, and cover lightly to hold moisture in. Once seedlings are up a few inches, they handle the remaining heat far better than the seed ever could. Choose leaf lettuce or slow bolt varieties. Baby leaves are ready in 25 to 30 days, and every cooler night after that only makes them crisper. Look for black-seeded Simpson, one of the fastest and most forgiving leaf lettuces. Jericho, bred specifically to resist bolting in warmer conditions. And salad bowl, which keeps producing new leaves from the center for weeks. Slugs and aphids are the two pests that show up most on fall lettuce. For aphids, a strong spray of water or insecticidal soap on the undersides of the leaves usually solves it. For slugs, scatter diatomaceous earth around the base of the plants or set out a shallow dish of beer at soil level. They're drawn to it and won't leave. If lettuce has ever made you feel like a bad gardener, it wasn't you. It was the calendar. Number 11. Mustard greens. Mustard greens don't apologize for their flavor. Grown in heat, a single leaf can be sharp enough to make someone stop mid-bite. But grown as the days cool, that same plant softens into something with real depth, still bold, but with a trace of sweetness underneath the heat. They're fast, baby leaves in about 3 weeks, full cooking size in 30 to 45 days. If your region is still baking, wait until the second half of August to plant, or tuck them somewhere with afternoon shade. Harvest small leaves raw for salads, or let them grow out and cook them down. Heat from the pan tames the sharpness while keeping the character. Pick the outer leaves first, leave the center growing, and one planting can feed you clear through September and October. Southern Giant Curled is the classic choice. With ruffled, deeply cut leaves, Red Giant adds striking purple-red color, along with a bit more heat, and Tender Green offers a milder flavor for anyone easing into mustard for the first time. Like most greens in the cabbage family, mustard greens attract flea beetles and cabbage loopers. Row cover from day one keeps flea beetles off the seedlings, and if loopers show up later, the pale green caterpillars that chew ragged holes, BT spray clears them up within a few days without affecting the plant itself. Mustard greens aren't for people who want every vegetable to taste gentle. They're for people who want their garden to have an opinion. Number 10. Beets. Most people think beets are a one-harvest plant. They're actually two. Weeks before the root is ready, the leaves are already edible. Spinach-like, but deeper, earthier. Use them in a sauté, but don't strip the whole plant. The leaves are still feeding the root growing underneath. The root itself is ready in 50 to 70 days, and something strange usually happens right after germination. One seed produces 2 or 3 seedlings, because a beet seed is actually a small cluster. Thin the extras while they're tiny. Don't toss them, they make excellent microgreens. Watch the shoulder of the root rise above the soil line as it grows, and pull it once it hits the right size for the variety. Wait too long and the texture turns woody fast. If you've never grown chioggia, slice one open. The inside reveals rings of pink and white like something hand-painted. One packet, two harvests, and a payoff that looks as good as it tastes. Detroit Dark Red is the reliable standby almost every seed catalog carries. Chioggia gives you that striped, candy cane interior, and Golden Beets offer a milder, less earthy flavor, along with color that won't stain your cutting board. The main pest to watch for is the leaf miner, which tunnels between the layers of the leaf and leaves pale, winding trails. Pick off and destroy any affected leaves as soon as you spot them, and a row cover kept on through the seedling stage prevents the adult flies from laying eggs in the first place. Real quick, if you've made it this far, you already care more about your garden than most people who start these videos. That's exactly who this channel is for. So go ahead and subscribe now, because what's coming at number 5 is the one crop that most home gardeners get completely backwards, and it's going to save you an entire wasted planting next year. Number 9, broccoli. Broccoli isn't hard to grow, it's just planted at the wrong time constantly. Started in spring, and right as the head needs to form slowly and tightly, early summer heat slams into it. The result is a loose, sad little head that bolts before it's worth eating. People walk away convinced broccoli hates them. It doesn't. It just hates spring. For an August start, use transplants instead of direct sown seed. A plant with 4 to 6 true leaves can use the last of summer's warmth to bulk up before heading into cooler, more favorable weather in September and October. Most varieties need 60 to 80 days from transplanting, so check your label carefully. Harvest when the head is firm and tight, before the buds start to separate. And don't pull the plant after the main head. Side shoots keep coming from the leaf joints for weeks, smaller than the first cut but just as good. Belstar and Calabrese are two dependable short-season varieties bred for fall harvest, and Waltham 29 is prized specifically for its cold tolerance if your first frost tends to come early. Broccoli's biggest pest threats are cabbage worms and aphids. The worms hide along the midrib and inside the developing head, so check closely, not just at a glance. Handpick what you find, use BT spray for anything you miss, and rinse harvested heads well, since worms can be tucked deep in the florets. One plant, multiple harvests, all because you gave it the season it actually wanted. Number 8, turnips. Turnips have a reputation problem, and it's not their fault. Almost everyone who says they hate turnips has only eaten the old, oversized, woody version. A turnip pulled at golf ball size is an entirely different vegetable. Crisp, mild, almost sweet. They mature in 40 to 60 days, and an August planting means they finish in cooling soil, which builds better texture and flavor than a hot weather root ever gets. Hakure is the variety to look for if you want something snack-worthy raw. And don't skip the greens. Young turnip leaves cook up like a milder mustard green, slightly peppery with real substance. Thin the seedlings early so the roots have room, and harvest before they get big. A small, sweet turnip beats a giant woody one every time. That's the whole secret this vegetable has been hiding from you. Beyond Hakare, purple top white globe is the classic storage type if you want some roots to hold on to longer, and Scarlet Queen adds a bright red skin with crisp white flesh underneath. Watch for flea beetles on the young leaves and root maggots underground, which tunnel into the root itself and are much harder to catch early. A row cover kept on from sowing through the first few weeks blocks both problems, and rotating where you plant turnips each year keeps root maggot populations from building up in the soil. Number 7, spinach. Spring spinach is always losing a race it can't win. It barely gets a few rounds of leaves before longer days force it to bolt, and once it bolts, it's bitter and done. Spinach planted now runs in the opposite direction, straight into fall, which is exactly where it wants to be. The obstacle is the first 2 weeks. Spinach germinates poorly in hot soil, so avoid planting it in full baking sun this early in the month. Plant in the evening, choose a spot with light shade, keep the surface consistently moist, and if your soil is still hot, try pre-chilling the seed in a damp paper towel in the fridge before sowing. Once seedlings are established, falling temperatures do the rest of the work for you. Baby leaves are ready in 25 to 30 days. Harvest outer leaves and let the center keep producing, and every cool night after that only deepens the flavor. Bloomsdale Longstanding is the old reliable, with heavily crinkled leaves. Space is a smooth leaf variety that's especially resistant to bolting, and Taiyi splits the difference, with good disease resistance and a long harvest window. Leaf miners are the main issue here too, tunneling visible trails through the leaves, and aphids can cluster on the undersides in cooler, damp weather. Remove mined leaves promptly, keep a row cover on early, and treat aphids with insecticidal soap before the colony gets established. Spinach only has to survive the last stretch of summer. After that, it's smooth sailing. Number 6. Collard greens. If lettuce is the fragile one on this list, collards are the opposite. They're one of the toughest leafy crops you can grow, standing strong long after more delicate plants have quit. They won't give you a fast harvest like arugula, and they don't have a flashy root like beets. What they offer instead is stamina, weeks and weeks of production while the rest of the garden slows down. Start with transplants if your fall is short, and give each plant real room. Collards get bigger than most people expect, and crowding them chokes off airflow and stunts growth. Harvest from the bottom up, taking the oldest, lowest leaves first, and letting the center keep pushing new growth. One plant can feed you for months. And here's the twist. Cold nights actually improve collards, softening their bitterness into something deeper and sweeter. The first frost doesn't hurt this plant. It upgrades it. Georgia Southern is a heat and cold tolerant heirloom that's been a garden staple for generations. Vate stays compact and is slower to bolt, and Champion offers extra large leaves if you want maximum yield per plant. Collards face the same cabbage family pests as broccoli and kale, cabbage worms, aphids, and occasionally harlequin bugs, which are easy to spot thanks to their bold black and orange shield pattern. Handpick what you can, knock aphid clusters off with water, and use BT spray for a worm infestation that's gotten ahead of you. Number 5. Carrots. Carrots will test you before they even show a single green sprout. The seed is tiny, sown shallow, and can take 2 to 3 weeks to germinate, which is an eternity for soil that dries out in a single hot afternoon. Most failed carrot rows aren't a soil problem or a variety problem. They're a moisture problem that happened before the seedling ever had a chance. The fix isn't dumping water once. It's keeping the surface consistently damp with light, frequent watering, or covering the row with damp burlap or a board to hold moisture in while you wait. The second you spot tiny sprouts, pull the covering so they get light immediately. Once they're up, thin them early. Crowded carrots grow bent, twisted, and small because they're fighting each other for space underground. Loose, stone-free soil matters more here than almost anywhere else in the garden. The payoff for all that patience. Carrots pulled after several cold nights convert stored starch into sugar, and the flavor difference is not subtle. Pull one, rinse it off, take a bite. It will not taste like anything from a grocery store, and that single bite is the entire reason gardeners put up with 3 weeks of nothing. Danvers and Nantes are two of the most dependable groups for fall planting. Danvers handles heavier soil better, while Nantes tends to be sweeter and more tender. Scarlet Nantes specifically is a favorite for eating fresh. The pest to know here is the carrot rust fly, whose larvae tunnel into the root and leave rusty-looking scars you won't see until harvest. Since the adult flies stay low to the ground, a row cover on hoops, set up right at planting, keeps them from ever reaching the row. Before we get to the final 4, hit that subscribe button right now if you want next week's video the moment it drops. Because next week I'm covering the exact frost dates that determine whether every single plant on this list actually has time to finish, broken down by region, and you do not want to miss it. Number 4. Kale. Kale doesn't just tolerate cold, it uses it. When temperatures drop, the plant converts stored starches into sugar to protect its own cells, which means kale picked after several frosty nights can taste dramatically sweeter and more tender than the exact same plant picked in September heat. This is not a minor difference. It's the difference between, I guess I'll eat my vegetables, and genuinely wanting the leaves in your dinner. Plant now to give the roots time to establish before real cold sets in. Harvest from the outside in, cutting the oldest leaves and letting the center keep climbing taller through fall. Young leaves are fine raw. Bigger leaves want heat, sautéed, baked into chips, folded into soup. Experienced growers don't rush to strip the whole plant before frost. They let the cold finish the job for them, because kale isn't just surviving the cold season. It's becoming a better version of itself because of it. Winter boar produces thick, curly, extremely cold-hardy leaves. Red Russian has tender, flat leaves with purple-red stems and a milder flavor. And lacinato, also called dinosaur kale, brings a deep blue-green color and a slightly nuttier taste. Kale shares the same pest list as the rest of the cabbage family: cabbage worms, aphids, and harlequin bugs. A row cover early on prevents most egg laying in the first place, and insecticidal soap handles aphid clusters without harming the plant. Number 3. Radishes. Circle a date on your calendar exactly 4 weeks from today. If you plant a fast radish variety right now, that circle date could be the day you're pulling your first harvest. Few vegetables on Earth move faster. Most round varieties finish in 22 to 30 days, germinating in days and maturing through increasingly favorable, cooling weather. But speed cuts both ways here. Radishes have a short harvest window, and leaving them in the ground even a few days past ready turns them hollow, pithy, and sharp enough to regret. Track your sowing date, check the days to maturity on the packet, and once the shoulder of the root starts pushing up through the soil, pull one and check it, rather than waiting for a perfect moment that might already be behind you. Sow a fresh short row every 7 to 10 days instead of one giant planting, and you turn one crop into a rolling harvest that carries you through the rest of fall. Cherry Belle is the fastest and most familiar round red radish. French breakfast has that classic elongated red and white shape, and Easter egg mixes gives you a rainbow of colors from one packet. Flea beetles are really the only pest that bothers radishes seriously, peppering the leaves with small holes. But because radishes grow so fast, they usually outrun the worst of the damage before it matters. A light row cover for the first couple of weeks is enough insurance if flea beetles are heavy in your area. Radishes aren't the prettiest thing on this list. They're the proof, delivered in under a month, that the season isn't over. Number 2, cauliflower. Cauliflower does not forgive mistakes the way broccoli does. If broccoli's main head fails, side shoots bail you out. If kale gets stressed, it just grows a little uneven and keeps going. Cauliflower gives you one shot. The head has to form under stable conditions, and even brief stress can cause it to button up small, form loose, or come in early and unusable. That's exactly why succeeding with it feels different from every other plant on this list. Use a strong 5 to 6 week old transplant, rather than starting from seed this late. Most varieties need 60 to 90 days from transplanting, so check your first expected frost date carefully before committing. Water deeply and consistently after transplanting. Cauliflower hates swinging between bone dry and flooded. As the head begins to form, some varieties need their outer leaves folded over the top to protect the color from sun exposure. Harvest while the head is still firm and tight. A loose, separating head has already started declining and won't improve by waiting. Snowball Y is the classic dependable white head. Amazing is bred specifically for reliable fall production, and Graffiti gives you a vivid purple head if you want something that stands out on the plate as much as in the garden. Cauliflower attracts the same worms and aphids as its cabbage family relatives, but the stakes are higher here, because any added stress can trigger the head to abort early. Keep a row cover on through the seedling and early growth stage. Handpick any worms you find, and avoid letting the plant dry out. Stress from both pests and inconsistent watering can ruin the head. This is the one that separates a casual gardener from someone who actually understands timing. And when you pull it off, you'll know exactly why it's not further down this list. Number 1. Bush beans. This isn't the top spot because bush beans love cold weather. It's the top spot because cold weather is actively hunting them down, and every single day you wait is a day taken directly out of their survival window. Bush beans are a warm season plant through and through. The seed needs warm soil to sprout. The plant needs a real stretch of warm days to flower and set pods. And one light frost, just one, can end the entire crop overnight. No second chances. That is why, out of every vegetable on this entire list, this is the one you cannot casually plant sometime before September. Most varieties need 45 to 65 days before pods even start forming, and you should not cut that margin close. As nights cool and days shorten, growth slows down even before frost technically arrives, so add at least 1 to 2 extra weeks of buffer beyond the stated days to maturity when you check it against your first frost date. If the math is tight, it's genuinely risky. If you've got 70 plus frost-free days left, you're in solid shape. Sow directly. Beans hate having their roots disturbed by transplanting. Keep the soil consistently moist without waterlogging it, and once flowers appear, don't let the plant go dry. A lack of water at that exact stage causes flowers to drop and pods to disappear before they ever form. Harvest pods while they're still firm and the seeds inside haven't started to visibly swell. Picking regularly is what keeps the plant flowering instead of shutting down. Provider is prized for germinating well even as soil starts to cool. Contender is one of the fastest maturing varieties available, and Blue Lake 274 and Strike both offer strong flavor and reliable yields for a late planting. The pests to watch closely are Mexican bean beetles, whose orange spiky larvae skeletonize leaves from the underside, and spider mites, which show up as fine webbing and stippled yellowing leaves during hot, dry stretches. Handpick beetle larvae and adults when you see them. Hose down mite-affected leaves regularly, since mites hate moisture, and keep a row cover on before flowering. Just remember to remove it once blossoms appear, so pollinators can reach the flowers. Every other vegetable on this list is waiting for the cold to arrive so it can get better. Bush beans are racing to finish before the cold arrives at all. Plant them today, and if the timing works out, you get one final harvest of fresh beans in the last days before frost finally closes the door on the season. That's the list. 15 vegetables, 1 shrinking window, and exactly 0 good reasons to leave your garden empty for the next 4 months. The people who get the best fall harvest aren't the ones with the fanciest setup. They're the ones who looked at their calendar today instead of next weekend. Your first frost date is the only deadline that matters here, so go check it right now, count backward, and figure out which of these 15 still has time to make it. Tell me in the comments which one you're planting first, and what growing zone you're in. I read every single one, and I'm curious how far this list actually stretches depending on where you are. And if this saved you from writing off your garden for the year, subscribe before you go, because the next video breaks down the exact frost date math for every region, so you never have to guess again.